Welcome back to Shit Creek Survivors, the podcast where we share stories of resilience, the tools that helped us push through life's toughest challenges, and the hope that reminds us transformation is possible. Today's guest is Brian Passenti, a man who turned his life around after years of addiction, finding freedom and purpose through sobriety and ultra running. Brian has faced the lows of substance use, the life-changing wake-up call of a serious bike accident, and the challenges of rebuilding his life step by step. In this episode, he shares how he discovered resilience, the role that community support played in his recovery, and how ultra running became more than just a sport. It became a path to personal growth and transformation. Before we dive in, do me a quick favor. If these conversations inspire you, hit that subscribe button so you never miss an episode. It really helps us reach more people who need some hope today. Let's dive into Brian's story. So we feel like we're making a difference and God's given us the opportunity. So we're trying to link up with like-minded people like you. And thank you so much for reaching out to us and being willing to share your story, because it kind of sounds like you realize there's power in sharing those stories and helping other people.
Totally. I just recently ran the my 10th Leadville Trail 100 for a 1,000-mile buckle. I've ran. That's actually right there in the.
Oh my
corner.
gosh! I got to hear
buckle.
about.
I can't even wear it. It's too obnoxious. Like it's like I don't have enough I don't have enough girth of my own human body to actually wear this thing around and like strut it properly. So it just sits right there for the podcast.
Like a wrestling belt.
Yeah, totally. It's a WWE wrestling award, right? It's the welterweight championship title or something.
That is so cool, and I gotta hear how you got into ultra marathoning, because I think of running. Like I played lacrosse in college, D3 and all that kind of stuff. And once I got out of that, I was like, I'm never running again. And then I got into the police academy. I'm like, I'm never running again after this. And you found freedom in it. So I really like to hear about that. But
sure.
I guess before we get going any further, welcome, Brian, to the Shit Creek Survivor podcast. And before we do anything, I would love you to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, Cam and Dennis, thanks so much for having me. I feel privileged to be here. And I am Brian Passenti. I am 51 years old. I live in Western Colorado on the western slope of the Great Divide in Colorado. And gosh, I got a lot of shit creeks.
We all do.
I'll probably just share one or two today.
Yeah, cool. Well, thank you. And you reached out to us. You had such a great kind of bio and all that kind of stuff. But, I would love to hear from the very beginning. And you kind of introduce how you mentioned that substances came into play kind of in your teens, right? And would you be willing to kind of explain how that happened and what you were using and that sort of stuff to anyone else who might be able to relate?
Sure, of course. I'll even start back a little bit earlier than that. I was adopted from South America by a family from just outside of New York City. Okay. I am Italian. My last name is Passenti, but I was Colombian born, and okay. And I had a great childhood until it was about 10. Pretty normal. I have an older brother who's a natural of my adoptive family and myself. Mother and father. I played a lot of sports. My father was the recreation director for the town. So I had the first year I was eligible, maybe 7 or 8 years old, that late elementary school age. I had to play every sport imaginable. Before the following year, I was able to pick 1 or 2 of the sports I like to do, which is a pretty fair process, I thought. And we tried it with our own kids later on in life.
Yep.
In around 11 years old, my parents split up. My adoptive parents split up. My dad moved away to Florida to beat the child. What are they called?
Like when you
alimony, child alimony.
Okay. I'm sorry. Yeah.
He was trying to. Yeah, I'm sorry. My dad moved to Florida to kind of get away from the child alimony laws, and just kind of left us high and dry. So we were left out on a limb. My older brother just went to college that same year. So it was my mom and I. My mom had to go back to school. She had to go back to work. She had to do all these things that she wasn't set up to do just a few months prior to that. So I had a lot of free time on my hands as an 11-year-old, 12-year-old, going into high school, 8th grade, going into high school. And, shit just started rolling downhill. I started hanging out with the wrong kids. We were making bad decisions. We were going into people's garages, stealing booze. There was never any booze in my house ever that I could ever remember. But, we started getting into the drinking, and with older siblings, even though my brother was at college, I knew a lot of the older kids that were still in town. So it was pretty easy to get, the weed and someone to go make a beer run for us and get the 30-pack suitcase and all those things was pretty easy when I was 12, 13 years old, actually surprisingly easy. And I luckily not in this day and age, but back then, surprisingly easy for me. But then it progressed, then we were trying angel dust and, trying cocaine in New York City, just outside of, I grew up just outside of New York City, Midtown Manhattan. So being a Spanish guy, I was pretty easily accessible to get into Spanish Harlem and go score some coke for our little neighborhood crew. And that turned into, bigger problems. But my mom was a psych nurse and put herself back through school to complete her education while she was working at Newark State Penitentiary as a night nurse. So she saw a lot of the crazies that you guys have probably witnessed as well. But she recognized it pretty early on that there was something wrong, that I wasn't right, that I was, up at all different hours of the day and night and not coming home for days on end. And when I did, I would just crash for hours. She recognized all the telltale signs, especially of a 12, 13, 14-year-old at this point now. And she quickly put me into a program. I went into like the 30-day inpatient hospital program, the psych ward, essentially. And there wasn't really much attention to detail on addiction itself. It was pretty much just like a monitoring system for 30 days. So I came out, I went back and did the exact same things again. Then I got court mandated to go do a longer term program. I think it was 3 months. I did a little bit of counseling there, but it was pretty cheesy, quite honestly. I mean, from my point of view, I'm sure people found benefit in it. I didn't personally. I don't think I was looking for the benefit either. So I think we also have to be searching for those things. And then I got mandated to like a long-term program, the Family Foundation. It was upstate New York. It's one of the schools that was featured, or a sister school that was featured in the program, the Netflix documentary about the troubled teen industry. It was where it was like an insurance scam, basically. They were taking insurance money. There wasn't that qualified counselors. And I was at the cusp of when the program started to just really tank and go downhill. I stayed there for, 2.5 years or so. Most of my high school years was spent at this facility. I didn't get any schooling. Hindsight being 2020, even when I left, none of my school transcripts were actually credible at all. They wouldn't even accept them. So I didn't have a high school diploma or any schooling that was sufficient enough to warrant graduating. So it was just kind of a shit show program. We were introduced to AA and Narcotics Anonymous. We also were overseen by a Franciscan monk, and we went to a lot of church. And so I was an altar boy just because it was something to do. So I kind of saw all those sides as a teenager. I saw the programs and I saw spirituality and it connected enough to get something out of it, even though the program was generally just shit. And, I got out. I wound up signing myself out 2 weeks before my 18th birthday and never made it back home. Just wound up going out and doing pretty much the same stuff. At 18, I was able to get into the service, but even that was kind of a wonky story. I know you guys have some experience with that as well. I was a fraudulent enlistment because my high school transcripts weren't legit. And this recruiter took my brother's transcripts and basically changed the dates and the years and got me in to the Marines. And I shipped off. I had a great time. I was a standout Marine in boot camp in school. I loved the heck out of it. I was pretty disciplined from being in that school, quite honestly. I was able to get up really early. We shoveled shit in the barn all day long, or went out and hayed all day, did a slight bit of school. We had lots of discipline. And that really it transcribed really well to the military service.
Right.
So a military life was pretty.
So does the partying at night.
Yeah, totally. And man, I mean,
Maybe not the angel dust, but the drinking for sure.
Yeah, if you want some friends, man, it's pretty easy to make some friends with a 30-pack of beer and 30 jar heads. You can easily make some friends. And so I did that for 3.5 years. And while I was in Haiti, one of the guys scored some weed through the fence, the concertina wire fence line, and it wasn't even weed. It was like some other shrub that wasn't weed.
Right.
But we all partook of it on a down day while playing volleyball on the airstrip at Haiti during apartheid, and we got in trouble for it and busted. And essentially, I was sent to the brig and released of my services. I was dishonorably discharged from the service for that incident.
And it wasn't
all
real?
of us were, and it wasn't real. Yeah, it was. It was. I mean, it. Yeah, I mean,
the intent.
It's kind of strange. Yeah, it was the intent. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it was like the intent. But it wasn't. It wasn't above us. I mean, like maybe I didn't get caught that day, and it wasn't real that day. But it wasn't above me prior to getting over to Haiti. I didn't smoke any weed in Haiti, but stateside, we were still using and abusing drugs pretty frequently. Maybe not all the crazy stuff from back in the day, from back in my city days, but being in North Carolina, I left there and just wandered around the city, New York City for a bit, still getting a ton of trouble. And all throughout this, though, even I've always had sport. So I know you wanted to hear about a little bit of a Leadville story, but those sports that I had to do as a adolescent that I was able to partake in, the ones I picked were wrestling and running. And so I've ran most of my life. Essentially, I was a standout athlete as a younger middle schooler. I had state records way back in the day for the mile, and it's just always stuck with me. Even through the school, I stayed in shape and ran quite a bit. Obviously, in the service, it was pretty easy to run all the time. I'd run every weekend and get those MWR checks, those big fake plastic checks for running a 5K. And I'd go take my buddies out and use all the money at the bar that night, to treat them because I won $150 or something like that for a 5K. And I was fast. I was gifted. I was naturally gifted. So it was pretty easy to continue that process and still be completely a shit show, like all the time.
Yeah.
Bounced around and then wound up traveling around out to go visit some friends in California. I wound up stopping in Colorado in the Western Slope here. And essentially, I've never left. That was 1998. I've been in Glenwood for 27 years now. And I've left and gone on vacation. But the joke my mom always says, because I went here on vacation, was, when are you coming home from vacation? So every now and then my mom will still ask when I'm returning from vacation. But yeah, that's essentially how I got to Glenwood 27 years ago. But that process continued on. I was a more productive adult. I held jobs and careers, but I still had an alcohol and drug addiction problem going on. And so it was always something I was dealing with. I had a friend pass away, probably about 10 years ago with an accident while he was drinking and drugging with us and all those things. So he passed away. I had another friend that I was in the service with that I used to use with prior to the service. We went in together. His mom passed away from a cocaine overdose, and he wound up intentionally overdosing on opioids as a suicide escape. So it was starting to come around full circle where like the people around me were disappearing, and I was like, man, this is not strange, but it's eye opening, I guess. It's something I should consider. Like, whoa, things are happening. People are moving quickly around me, and not in a good way. I still continue to train and run, quite honestly, though, to some degree. I was never as good as I was without the drugs and alcohol, but I kept some sort of fitness going on. And at some point, just in the last few years of my addiction, I too, like you had mentioned earlier on the intro or prior to recording, I think, I was looking for a way for change, but I didn't really know how to do it. But I had all that experience from being a kid. I knew there was programs out there. I knew there was church and community out there. I just wasn't finding it. So I was sitting around buying drugs and alcohol every weekend, waiting for something to happen, waiting for a change that was going to happen. But to your point, it had to be me, right? I had to make the change. And I actually feel fortunate. I mean, if I showed you the pictures, you'd be horrified. But I feel fortunate. One of the nights, I loaded up my backpack. I had so many DUIs that I was like, all right, I can't get any more DUIs. I mean, like it was like that bad. And I thought, gosh, I'm just going to load up my backpack full of beer, go to my buddy's house just a half a mile away. And we're going to watch MMA fighting, and I'm going to come home, and no one will know the wiser because I didn't take the car, I didn't do anything like that. And we were starting a young family, my wife and I. My kids were pretty young, like maybe 3 and 5 years old, roughly, right in that age group. Still pretty young. And I wiped out on the bicycle on the way home, completely blacked out, crashed on a black ice. It was December 16th or so, here in Colorado, super cold, like 5 degrees outside. And I completely disfigured the side of my face. No reaction to the ice. I went straight to the ground and separated my cheekbone from my skull. My eye socket was lowered, so I was seeing like a double vision going on because they weren't leveled, and broke my nose. And then just a slaughter of blood across my face. I laid there next to the bike for roughly about what we think was about an hour before I ding-donged the nearest neighbor at a complete confusion. I had no idea where I was or what I was doing there and how I got there. They were too scared to even open the door because I looked like such a zombie and was such a mess. But they called the sheriff, so they did the right thing and called the sheriff. The sheriff came, got me an ambulance. I had to have plastic reconstructive surgery, and my wife was finally like, this is the end of it. Like, this is the end. There can't be any more drinking going on. And it was almost what I was looking for. I was looking for some sort of sign or some sort of change. And so I said, well, yep, I agreed. Like, this is it. We got to make the change. So, that was my last drink, at my buddy's house watching MMA fighting, almost 9 years ago now. So, 8+ years ago, I guess, next month, right around this time will be 9 years.
Great job.
Congratulations on the 9 years.
Great job. Yeah. I actually hit 9 years on the 21st of this month. So I'm with you. It's kind of
in a few weeks, and then on the
21st.
Awesome. Nice.
Do what?
I still haven't quite made the step. I've been focusing on my sobriety is not getting blackout drunk or not drinking as much, but I haven't completely stopped. I did try to go cold turkey about 9 months ago, and it didn't work very well. But anyway, I applaud both of you. I did have one thought while you're talking about, you had the building blocks, you had some different nuggets, but you had to decide when it's time to put it. And what flashed in my head was like an analogy of, you get the building supplies to build the foundation, but they're just scattered around you. You have to decide to start putting them together and actually build the foundation with all of those nuggets. So I don't know, just kind of like a visual analogy that popped in my head. Maybe it'll reach somebody or not. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I love it. That's exactly it too. I think I knew something had to happen, but I also knew there was resources out there, and I think some other people may not know that, and that's just from my childhood experience. That I was involved with AA slightly. I was an altar boy and went to church, like every other day for 2.5 years as a teen, in these programs. I knew there was both options out there, and I knew that there was both pathways.
I didn't know that. Prior to entering the AA program, I didn't know that sometimes people bring their children to meetings and like that sort of stuff. And there's actually been people in meetings who were like, I realized I was an alcoholic at a very young age because I had been within the walls of AA. I had watched my mother or father do whatever they did, or a family member or a friend. And they're so already in touch with those resources. It's really amazing, and they know they're there. They know that and they also know they have to do the work too. It's not just like a freebie. Oh, if I get in trouble, I'm going to go over here. It's like, I'm going to go over here, but I got to do a lot of work and it's life altering, but I do have support. So yeah, that is amazing. And for anyone who's listening, that support is out there. A lot of times just because we haven't been shown it, it doesn't mean it's not there. And there's a huge community of people working in that quadrant, if you will, in, recovery. And there's all kinds of family you can find on the other side. And it turns out you're not alone at all, or kind of, you're not the only person who's ever made that decision, as bad as it could ever be. That is so freaking cool. So you said, I guess one of your paddles for your shit creek was knowing that there was resources around you. Would you say there were any other paddles that you found or were handed, or would you say there was a moment in time where you kind of explained it where it really clicked in that you were going to have to handle your own situation? I guess it was the bike
Mhm.
ride, and it kind of were like, okay, this is the moment. I could go left or right. What made you choose the hard course, which is, that is getting back up and doing it the right way? What would you say was like one of your core things? Like, I got to do it.
Quite honestly, I was looking for something. I was looking for some sort of sign or uh, event, and the bike accident was it. So as soon as it happened, I mean, once I came to and realized what was going on in the morning of in the hospital preparing for surgery, I was like, oh, this is the moment I've been looking for. This is the
Yeah.
defining moment. This is now my bottom. This is it. And I did have some other paddles, quite honestly, to go back to the original question.
Mm,
But I mentioned a bunch of DUIs, and I had spent 60 days. I don't even know if maybe it's your third or fourth DUI. You have to spend 60 days in jail, and the next step would have been a full year in jail.
mm,
And I had done the 60 days already, so that's why driving was a little more scary for me after
yeah.
the whatever number that was, but it was quite a few. And those are the ones I got caught, right? When we think about that, like all those
Right.
times I drove and didn't get caught, or luckily didn't
Mm,
hurt anyone. But in that process, I had to go to these classes locally here in Glenwood Springs. It's a pretty small town. It's maybe 15 to 20,000 people, pretty small community, little mountain town. So
mm,
as much as it's small and it's quaint and it's quiet, everyone kind of knows everyone's business. It was like in the paper that I'd gotten a DUI, another DUI. And so it was,
right.
it's a little shameful, right? But I had to go to these classes. I had to go to like recidivism classes in order to get my license back or maintain my license. I had to go like every week I had to go to like two. And if I missed one, then they could revoke my license. So I was pretty
Right.
mandated to go to it. But the instructor is what is one of my paddles. His name was Pete, and he was the coolest dude. He did pass away. Since I've been sober, he did pass away, and he was really excited that I did get sober. So he was able to witness that in me as one of his students. But you can
Very
imagine
cool.
like a DUI instructor and how many, we think about like how we can outreach and just touch one person, but like that DUI instructor sees so many people, and so like that one good story, always sticks with him. So he was really proud of me for getting sober, but he was so supportive, and he really engaged me. And I again, I had those other paddles from being a kid, but he engaged me, and like, it's not that odd. You'd be surprised if you went to the church and to an AA meeting on like what community members actually show up to this AA meeting, you'd be really surprised. And I was like, I just thought it was just the low lifes and degenerates of town, that were, going to these
Right.
AA meetings and drinking free coffee and getting donuts at 8 o'clock at night, but,
Right.
so
I
he was
had the
really
same
supportive. Yeah.
impression.
Yeah.
I
Totally.
had the same impression. I'm like, if you're an alcoholic, I'm not an alcoholic because I don't live under a bridge, or I'm
Mhm.
not an alcoholic because I still have a job or stuff like that. But I found like you go to an AA meeting, you could be sitting next to a neurosurgeon and you could be
Mhm.
sitting next to a homeless person. Both are working on the same issue. And so that's why they're in the same room. Like, it's really interesting that it can affect anybody. And what a great piece of advice, that's
Yeah.
amazing. That
Pete was the coolest dude, and yeah, he just really maybe, and I guess I was a little bitter. I knew those resources were out there from being a kid in those teen programs, but I was also kind of bitter at the programs as well. They were pretty shitty, pretty bad experiences as a teenage. All my teenage years were spent cooped up into these, just horrible, horrible facilities. So I
yeah,
think you brought new life into like what is out there, and so I knew there was
right.
programs out there, but it wasn't all bad and shady. Everyone wasn't out to get me in those programs,
Yeah, absolutely. What a cool way to put it. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, that's great. Yeah. So when you first got into the program, did you hit it kind of ground running, or did you sort of feel it out? Actually, let me rewind. Let me rewind a
Sure.
second. I was going to say something earlier and I totally forgot it. But I think it's funny. And I found in my walk in through addiction with alcohol and getting to the point where I was ready to start doing the work, I believe there's a gap of time when I knew something was wrong, but I wasn't ready to kind of take a leap at it. I
Mhm.
was kind of like, I know this isn't the right thing to do, but I'm not ready to fix it. And you said you were kind of looking for a moment to sort of like,
Mhm.
make it happen sort of deal. And I think that's a really interesting thing, because I think a lot of times we do know that what we're doing might be wrong, but at the same time, it's the one thing that's making us feel better. So it's like, it's hard to take action, and sometimes it takes an outward or outside thing to happen. It did for me. I ended up in the hospital the first time I got sober and had to do detox in the hospital. I ended up in the hospital having seizures, but then went through detox, then went through pneumonia. My right lung collapsed, and then I actually had a near-death experience where I got to cross over and see heaven and hold my grandma's hand. So when I came back, and the other thing that's cool about the other side is there's no pain. There's no physical pain, mental pain, spiritual pain, none of it. You don't even remember it. But then all of a sudden you get sent back and you're like, oh man, I got to do all this again. And so I was almost like, bitter even coming back. But it just takes a process of like time, and when are you going to be able to kind of push back against this? And like quite an adjustment period. Yeah. It's hard to swallow when you're like, the thing that's making you feel better is the wrong thing to do, but you don't have another option. So it's either pain or this. And so it's a really kind of simple answer. It's like self-preservation usually wins, if I need to get through today, I'm going to use whatever I need to. I'll fix it tomorrow. That's always like, and what's funny is we even get a little dopamine from planning the next day we're going to fix this. So it actually makes that day better. You're like, oh, I'm going to fix it tomorrow. So today's good. I can, blah, 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 blah. And then tomorrow comes. And for me, I'd be like, oh, well, it's Wednesday. Let's wait till Monday. Monday's the perfect day to start. And then Monday comes around. I'm like, oh, I don't feel good. I'll start tomorrow. And then, all that kind of stuff. But It is funny. Everyone has their own walk through it and different things they've experienced and different beliefs they have on what they need to do. Yeah, it's just, it's very interesting that we live in that gap for quite a period of time. What would you say about that? Sorry, I didn't mean to ramble on. But.
Oh, you're fine. Yeah. I think for me, I think for me, I was so clouded in it. And again, like you were saying, like, I'll just do it tomorrow. I'll just get sober tomorrow or next week or after. Well, now we're in November, so maybe after Thanksgiving, but then it's going to go to Christmas. So probably after the New Year, right? I mean, right,
definitely after the New Year. Yeah.
If you're listening right now, at the end of the year, as we wrap up, we start November here and we're wrapping up the holidays or starting to get into the holidays. But I think I was so clouded in the idea, like there had to be some sort of timestamp on it. Like it was never right now. And and I was like, oh no, I'll do the work later. I'll do the work later. I'll do the work later. But I mean, I don't know. A lot of years escape me of saying I'll do the work later.
Yeah. I don't know what it is. You kind of wait, and you're just anxious the whole time. Either way, by the end of it, it's the whole idea. And it really, when someone said it to me the first time, I was like, that makes total sense, because by the end of it, you can't live with it and you can't live without it. So you're like in this very pressurized kind of like vacuum where you don't feel like you have a lot of options, and that everyone's telling you you're living the wrong way, but you don't know if you can live the right way. It just gets really big in your head. So knowing that there's community out there is a big deal.
I think that a good way to explain this little gap period is you've acknowledged that you have an issue or a problem or an addiction. You've acknowledged that you need to fix it, and these are some of the tools that you can use to do it. You've acknowledged that this is going to be tough, but you haven't accepted it yet. You haven't decided to actually accept it and do the steps yet. You just acknowledged it. So that's that gap area, in my opinion.
Totally.
Yeah. And I think we all find ourselves in that gap in anything in life too. I mean, there's certain things you got to do, like, even the idea for some people of going to college. It's like, I don't know if I want to go to college, blah, 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 blah. And they wait till that last minute where they don't even really have an option of going. They almost want the decision to be made for them, like just, and that's what saved me. And a lot of times in addiction that happens, it's like you do something and you end up in a situation where there is no escape. So it's like almost you're pinned down, and it's like, you got to make a decision right here, and sometimes that's the only way that someone makes the decision to go either left or right. They're forced to make it, it's just, addiction is complicated. But it is not the end all be all, because people like Brian decided in that moment that he was going to stand up, pull his boots up and get to work. So let's hear what you did. What was one of your first kind of adventures when you decided to get sober and you have this young family looking at you?
Hindsight is always 20/20, right? I mean, like, I thought, oh, all right, we're doing it. This is like 2 days after surgery, all right, we're doing it. I'm laying around. I'm taking just some light pain meds because I did have reconstructive surgery and plastic surgery to the side of my face to put it all back together. And I had a concussion that was like really bad, like a 6 months, like it took, I couldn't sit in the front seat of the car and look out the window because the trees would make me nauseous. So I had to look at my feet on the floorboard because they weren't moving with me. Like that's how bad of a concussion I had just to go to the doctor's office.
Wow.
I actually have like a little bit of a unique story, I guess. I don't think we all do, but where I'm going with it is that I actually didn't go into the program at all. I actually continued to see Pete and my DUI classes, but I think I was like engaged now instead of being the participant in the back room with my arms crossed, just waiting for the hour and a half to be over every week and signing off on it. I was like actually sitting to the front, picking his brain and talking with him. And I became friends with him even after graduating the recidivism program. I befriended him and we could call him and text him. And I helped him move a piece of furniture one time because he was an older gentleman. But, we became friends and outside of the recidivism class. So I think that really was like my anchor. Cold turkey. I never had a drink after that. Never did anything at all. And I also turned to like more health related vices, right? So I continued running. I continued running a lot more. And I'm an ultra runner. The spoiler.
I was about to say a lot more. You didn't just start running a little more. You started running a lot more. Okay. And you're going to tell us about.
Spoiler alert. I run a lot.
What's an ultra runner?
So an ultra marathon is anything more than a marathon. It could be 50K. 50 kilometers is 31 miles. I personally prefer like the 100-mile distance, 100 miles on foot. And I've run up to 250 miles in Arizona, the Cocodona 250. I've ran the Moab 240 twice. I've run 16 100-milers in the last decade or so. And 10 of them were at Leadville. And that was a story before recording that we had just briefly touched on because of, for some reason. But the community of ultra running is completely forgiving and unique in many, many ways. We're not racing each other. If the three of us were running the race together, we're actually just trying to push each other farther. So it's more of a supportive group. If my crew or my team is at the aid station 55 miles down the trail or something, and Cam, you needed something, but didn't have it, my crew would just give it to you. Like it's not about my team versus your team. Really supportive community. And so I've kind of really embraced this community as well and went full in with it. 2 years after getting sober, I created my own coaching company. So I coach athletes in these extreme distances. And I've done that full time since 2022 now. So
because that's a huge part of it, right? Is just the planning of how is this going to go and where's my support crew and how it's like you're a machine and you have to make sure you're putting the fuel in. You got to make sure, like that's crazy. 250K. Is that what you said?
250 miles.
Okay. So even that, I mean, that is freaking out of this world. Like that is crazy. And the one in the Mojave Desert, is that the one where your shoes start melting as you're running around down the road?
Oh, you're thinking of the Badwater 135. Yeah. That's a famous one too. I might apply for that one this year. I have enough
if you do that race,
my resume is full enough.
Yes, that's true.
How long does it take to run 250 miles?
250 miles. I think it took me 4 days, 105 hours for the 250. For 240, I did it in as quick as 82 hours, which is 3 days and 10 hours.
That's
insane. The clock just runs, or you're moving. I don't know if we call it running at some point. It's pretty fast walking, a lot of it. And you're going across, mountainous terrain. The Moab landscape is a great example of, just like really hot extremes during the day and really cold nights, because the desert doesn't retain any of the heat. It just burns off. So we saw temperature swings of 80 degrees on those 3-4 days. So it's always a tricky play. You're, bringing enough sunshade for the daytime, but enough warm gear for the nighttime. So you're always just having to carry a lot of stuff. But logistically, it's great. It's a challenge, and it's keeping me engaged, and the community is just super supportive. and I'm just all in, and I'm really enjoying this space now, and being part of something that's super positive. I think drug addicts and alcoholics and all of us with substance abuse issues really do well in the endurance space, because we know how to suffer, if that makes any sense. And that's like the correlation between the two.
All right.
We really know how to suffer and just suffer. I
agree.
And we're good at it, and we're really good at it. Like, that's the thing.
That's why we like golf so much.
We can sit on a hot plate all day. Yeah, that is totally so funny.
Well, good for you. That's a very immersive form of like meditation. That's good for you. I'm sorry to interrupt, Cam. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, it's funny when you go along this journey of recovery, and the only time the course or the whatever you were saying, it only makes sense looking back, hindsight in 2020. Mm-hmm. But some of the most glorious things can happen in those moments, especially when you've been through addiction, because you have something else to look back on, which was a low. And you just finished what marathon to attain how many miles?
I just finished the Leadville Trail 100 for my 10th time, which is 1,000 miles. And I was awarded a 1,000-mile buckle, which is right here in the video, if you're watching the video.
So imagine that. Imagine that opportunity that you had, finishing that race, getting that, that world championship belt, and getting to look back and be like, wow, what a freaking roadmap. You know what I mean? Like how cool is that when you've come out of something paths, and
the paths are pretty similar in the fact of like the suffering that I do for 100 miles in 30 hours or less really are relatable to a sobriety journey or just a struggle in life. Shit Creek, right? The exact same, it's not gonna, maybe every now and then, I think in 16 100 plus mile events, I've had like one really great day. Other times I'm successful, but there's always a struggle in it. There's always a challenge. Yeah. There's always a low. There's a super low point where you just want to quit. You just want to go home. You just want to go get a burger in town and go to bed. And you're only at maybe mile 45 and you still have 55 plus miles to go, and you have to figure a way through it. And that's really relatable. Yeah, it's really relatable to a sobriety journey for sure.
Now, when you're on a run like that, so my wife ran a couple marathons, and I was kind of like her support crew on one. And I know that when we got to like mile 22, she kind of ran into a little bit of a wall, and it was more like a mental thing. How many walls do you run into when you're running 250? Or because it's so much bigger, does it kind of change it, or how does that go?
For me, I guess I could only speak from my experience. My experiences are that it could be one wall, it could be no walls, it could be 10 walls. But it when there are 10 walls, which there were at the 250, for me, it's like the waves of the ocean, right? Like the highs are good, and then the lows get lower, and then the highs get higher. At one moment I felt like I was like crying tears of pain and suffering, and why am I doing this to myself? And within 20 minutes I was like elated with tears of joy. You're like, well, like what is going on? You're like this emotional roller coaster. And so right. The highs get higher and the lows get lower, and it just keeps on this trend. In the lows, I always try to think about like, there's going to be better times. I've been through worse, right? When I think back of like my sobriety journey, or the accident to my face, and all the struggles I've had. And if I just stay in it, if I just stay gritty, if I just stay, endure longer, it could only get better. It should only get better, right?
Right.
And most of the time it does.
Well said. Yeah, well said. And that reminded me that kind of like in that low moment, you're still practicing at least a little bit mental control. At least you can. You're looking at things that are positive, compared to like diving into the negative, which is a conscious choice. You know what I mean? Because a lot of times when we're suffering, it is very tempting to just quit, but you're actively being like, yeah, it sucks right now, but I'm not going to stop, and it's going to get better. And you just don't have that quit, which is amazing. And I guess that's kind of a learned thing too, over time and more races and more walls. You're like, I recognize this. We've done this, so
yeah,
that's interesting. I'm sure you guys went through it in the military too, where it's like the first couple of weeks, you're like, what the heck is this? And then by the the third month, you're like, oh, I got that. That's easy, that sort of stuff. So it is funny that the things that look so high, we can do. And not only can we do once, we can do a whole bunch of times if we're willing to put our minds to it. I mean, that takes a strong mind to put yourself on the road that long, just one step after another. Man, what a feeling it must be when you finish.
250 miles, I'd have 250 blocks.
Yeah. That is just, I can only relate it to driving 250 miles. I mean, that's the only way I can relate it. The idea of going that far, even on a bike. I don't think I've never been that far on a bike. I don't think I've been 100 miles on a bike, and this man ran through the damn desert. That's crazy. But it takes something. I like the idea too that you find that suffering in that 40 hours or whatever it is, compared to like a couple years of just sitting on, anxiety and pain. You're able to kind of just like use it, which is amazing. That's another tool. Now, what would you say to someone who might be out there right now who is in their own shit creek and they're feeling a little hopeless? They know that they're the only one who can get them out of it, but they don't think they've got it in them. Is there anything you'd like to say to that person?
Gosh, I mean, I think what I would tell that person, even my old self, if I could go back, and save myself some years of pain and torture, that there is a different way out there. And it's just a matter of making the decision to do it. Just try. And I think for a long time for myself, I knew it was going to be life altering, but I was looking at it like an elephant, like the elephant in the room, right? And I had someone tell me once the analogy about how do we eat an elephant, and I stared at him blankly, and it's really just one bite at a time. So just taking it one moment at a time, or one day at a time, or whatever your process is, just until lunchtime today. Just do something different till lunchtime today. Just do something till dinner time today. Just keep pushing that needle a little bit more instead of focusing on this giant elephant in the room. Just try to eat it one bite at a time. And you'll be surprised at how much momentum you can gain. Both Cam and I are almost at 9 years at this point, just shy of 9 years of doing one bite at a time, right, Cam?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And it's so funny how those one day at a times can lead to where we are now. And looking back at it, you're like, holy smokes. But if we were to start and look up and be like, oh my gosh, 9 years, I ain't, you know what I mean? So it's got to be one step, one moment, whatever it is at a time, and find your pace. Don't try to copy someone else because, we're all going through our own thing. Brian mentioned that although he's used the AA program in a way, he was able to work directly with this gentleman who was helping with the program, who wasn't directly working for AA, but was feeding Brian, positive input about getting sober, reacclimating, getting moving forward. Like, find what works for you. But just know there are people out there willing to help, and that they've helped many people before you. They've seen way worse before you. I heard Jelly Roll mention one time that he was at a AA meeting, and I guess he stops at AA meetings every now and then if he's got some extra time. And there was a guy who, they ask a question every meeting, at the end when they're holding up the chips, does anyone have a burning desire to quit drinking? And this guy goes, I have a burning desire. I have been drinking already today, but I got to stop. And then an old guy just walked up behind him, put his hand on his shoulder and said, none of us come in here on a winning streak, baby. It's okay. So I think sometimes, like, we get worried. I was so ashamed of even walking into AA because I was so disappointed with myself. And little did I know, on the other side of those walls were hands to shake and people to help, and other people who knew the pain that I was in, that I wasn't just unique in my own story, that other people had been through it. And it's amazing. It's really, really cool what you can do when you get around like-minded individuals who have been in your seat before. Yeah, very, very cool. Now, Brian, you have your own podcast for ultra running, right? So let's talk about that. Let's talk about where people can find you directly. So if they need some more magic from you, where would they go?
I'm on, I don't know, the Facebook and Instagram. It's just Brian Passenti, Passenti. That's Brian with an I. And I think at Instagram, I am Ultra Coach Brian, if I'm not mistaken.
Very cool.
I have, the podcast is Buckle Up. In the ultra running world, when you finish an ultra marathon, the award is typically a belt buckle.
Okay.
Just like the one here, pictured here. And so Buckle Up was a natural fit. And I couldn't believe that no one took the name Buckle Up in the ultra running world. So I jumped on it and bought the rights to it.
There you go. Way to go. Strike when the iron's hot.
That's right.
So I'll put all that information in the bio. And just one extra question. And I was curious how someone would respond to this, because you're my first victim with this question.
Okay.
What would you define resilience as? Or what is it, the ability to be resilient? What does resilience mean to you?
It's a great question. I think resilience means, for me, resilience is sticking to a plan even during the tough times, not just when it's easy, not just on the bright, shiny days, and even when it's doom and gloom, even when the struggle is real, even when it's challenging. That's been my sobriety journey as well. Of course, we have this shining light. I had this accident, I get sober, but I'm sure everyone listening that is sober or has struggled with sobriety, we all have good and bad days still. It doesn't change. It doesn't mean all my days have been perfect and rainbows and sunshine since I got sober 9 years ago. Super challenging times, and that's resilience. That's waking up and putting on the boots even when the times are tough.
Yeah. Go. I agree. Well said. Very well said. Well, thank you, Brian, again for joining us on this episode. And if there's anything we can ever do to help you in any way, please reach out. If next time you finish a race, I need you to give me a call and let me know, and we'll either update people or we'll have you back on to talk about it. Okay.
Thanks so much for having me this afternoon. I appreciate your time.
Great meeting you, Brian. Thank you.
Absolutely. Great. Thank you for joining us on another episode of Shit Creek Survivors. Brian's journey reminds us that resilience is built one decision, 1 mile, 1 day at a time. And with the right support, there is always hope. If this episode encouraged you, please like the video, subscribe, and share it with someone who might need it today. And remember, no matter how rough the waters get, you don't have to go through them alone.